Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small, a podcast about brand development, entrepreneurship, and innovation in the modern world. In this episode, I'm joined by Jesse Horwitz, co-CEO and co-founder of Hubble Contacts. Listen as we talk about Jesse's upbringing, years at Columbia and Harvard, and the overall development of Hubble Contacts. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Jesse Horwitz of Hubble Contacts. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So actually, Jesse, I want to start out mentioning that about a month ago, I was looking for an e-commerce book, and my listeners pointed out time and time again that your book, Selling Naked, that I need to read that. So I want to throw in that plug in there. I'm checking it out this month. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Hopefully, goal with the book was to have something that's actually useful. So hopefully it is for folks, looking to start direct brands themselves.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, I want to get things started with a little bit about your upbringing. So where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Westchester, New York, so suburbs of the city. Public school, lived in Pelham, then in Armonk. It's very kind of standard issue, suburban high school deal.
Okay. And then I actually read a little bit about your parents, and your mother was at DC Comics and your father was also into finances. So did they have an impact on your business career?
Well, my mom was our first general counsel at Hubble. So
okay.
Down the road very directly. But yes, I mean, they were both, my mom went to Brown and Harvard Law. My dad went to MIT. My mom was, her whole career was as an entertainment lawyer. She was at DC Comics, but before that, Lifetime TV, Columbia Records, CBS, Sony Records, yada, yada. My dad a bunch on sort of the investment management side. Throughout his career. So, again, sort of, standard issue, suburban story, two educated professional parents. Definitely, very lucky on that front.
For sure. Did you have an entrepreneurship mindset growing up? Did you ever sell any products or anything of that such?
I did a lot of test prep stuff. Starting, probably like junior year, pretty much as soon as I had SAT scores, I started tutoring. And tutoring's great as sort of a very easy way to leg into, learning what having a business is about. You got to get customers. You have to drive enough value out of them. You have to service the customer relationship. So that was sort of very, very small scale stuff. I didn't necessarily. On the one hand, I didn't necessarily think I never thought like, oh boy, I really want to start a business.
Yeah.
I always was like starting clubs. I started a film club in high school, and literally, we just, once a month, watch movies and chat about them. I started a peer tutoring group in high school. In college, I started a mentoring group and a film production group. I was at Columbia, and I was for the first 2 years of college. I will always be one course away from a film studies major, unless I go back and take international film 2 and finish that up. And Columbia was a film theory program, so we watched movies and wrote essays. And at some point, it occurred to me and some of my friends that actually might not be the same thing as production. So we got a bunch of equipment on campus, and I kind of came to the conclusion that production was miserable. So that was that. But it was always starting stuff, was always tinkering with stuff. Did a lot of a lot of unpaid internships, which were probably like less productive for like sort of stamping my resume or that kind of thing. I think sort of the formal internship programs are more meaningfully bigger drivers there. but very helpful for figuring out like what I actually want to do. The same semester we did this film production thing on campus. I was a PA 2 days a week for Sony Picture Television's daytime judge shows. And,
Wow.
that was just another experience where I realized being on set was awful. And figuring out what you don't like is really important. And I found getting into actual workplace environments really helpful on that front.
For sure. So as you said, you went to Columbia,
Mm-hmm.
and was the main focus film at this time, or did you get into anything else?
I was going to be a film math double major.
Okay.
Math got really hard, and and production seemed awful. So I ended up being an econ math major. I took basically econ math was just if you did a math minor and econ minor, they called it a major. So I took my first econ course. I remember my first day of my first econ course was whatever. Folks can fact check me on this. So I think the day Lehman folded was September 15, 2008. Okay. So I started college in 2006, and it was a very benign environment. And Eddie, you could kind of, certainly, at Columbia, you could kind of study whatever you wanted. And as long as, you did a respectable job during the four years, there'd be lots of opportunities for you on the other side. And I remember this was the week before that class started. There were a bunch of interns back from their summer internships with Lehman. There was this panel of seniors talking all about how Lehman had been there for 170 years or whatever. Yeah. And it was definitely going to be there for 170 more. So it was certainly an exciting time to sort of shift focus.
For sure. So out of college and prior to Hubble, what kind of jobs were you working at this time?
Sure. So senior year, I was sort of dual tracking. I was applying to law schools and, and to jobs at the same time. And didn't love the offers I had. So headed to Harvard Law, not a terrible, not a terrible fallback option, but that's what it was. And kind of just kept recruiting once I got to Harvard. So I made a friend at law school who had been at Bridgewater in between college and law school. He connected me with the team over there. A lot of places don't want, just the same way if you're college, people don't want you as an intern between your, sophomore and junior years because you're 2 years away from being employable.
Yeah.
A lot of places don't want interns after their 1L year because law school is a 3-year program, but, Bridgewater was accommodating on that front. So I interned at Bridgewater. That was kind of more what I wanted to be doing anyway. So I asked them if I could just stay on full time, which they signed off on. So that was sort of the end of law school. At Bridgewater, then I was trading with a Bridgewater guy for a bit. And then I was on the investment team for Columbia's endowment for a few years.
Okay. And then in 2016, this is the establishment of Hubble. What inspired you to pursue the contact industry specifically?
Oh, I mean, from my end, it was completely my co-founder's idea, Ben.
Okay. Gotcha.
From my end, one of the things, a lot that was great about working at endowments, if you want to sort of be 10 miles wide, millimeter deep, it was really a fun place to be because the job of endowment is you're kind of looking all across the alternative investment world. So I got, a deal in that context is investing in a fund, generally not doing a direct deal, but you get to talk to, VC managers, hedge fund managers, private equity managers, private real estate managers, yada, yada. So the work was interesting. But the other thing that was great about endowment life is that the hours were like pretty religiously, 8 to 5, 8 to 6 or so. So it was a very predictable schedule, unless you had to be on the road for a manager. And so the time that I was at Columbia, I was, kicking the tires with multiple friends on ideas they had. I worked with one friend on a dating app, a guy from Zynga, who wanted to do sort of a more gamified dating app. Another friend on some stuff in the organ banking space, and actually he's now CEO of a first round back company called Ossium that I'm on the board of. So that one did move ahead. And then Ben, my co-founder on Hubble, was a friend from he'd also been an intern at Bridgewater.
Okay.
He ended up at BCG, then at Harry's. And so he started kicking around contact lenses as a consumer subscription category, and that's kind of how the whole thing came together. And I always, two things I always tell folks, who are thinking, okay, maybe they want to do, do something like this is A, like, hold on to a paycheck as long as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And do as much as you can sort of nights and weekends, even if it's painful. And B, everybody wants to work on their idea. Very few people want to be the first person to work on somebody else's idea. And you can get exposure to a lot more stuff that way. So you think in like a 3-year period, and there were a couple other ones that, that I didn't kick the tires on as seriously. I probably got to seriously dig in on, 3 different startup ideas across different spaces. And it was all because there, a lot of that was just because like there wasn't sort of a pride of authorship thing.
Gotcha. So you were still working full time at the start of Hubble?
Yes, Ben started researching the concept in like 2015. I started digging in with him a couple months after that. We didn't go full time until after we'd closed our seed in like mid 2016. So before launch, but at a point in time where we already had meaningful financing in the bank.
Gotcha. Was the first seed round, was that mainly utilized towards production and research then?
Yeah, I mean, getting ready for launch, but also like whatever, you have Henry Ford, and if I'd asked people, what they wanted, they would have asked for a faster horse or whatever. I don't believe in, I believe in getting I believe in trying to get as much validation for ideas I'm working on as possible. And so part of it was just being able to be able to pay ourselves. Part of it was actually needing the money to get live. A lot of it is just like, it's a big jump. It's a big jump to go do something full time. And I'd done that after Bridgewater. And it hadn't gone, nothing disastrous happened, but, kind of had petered out. And so I think it's good to sort of figure out what those validation points are to go do something full time, whether it's securing particular, financing, getting into an accelerator, hitting this, setting the business live while you're doing something full time still, and hitting a certain, customer milestone or revenue milestone. I think it's really important to think about, what other than just not wanting to be doing the thing you are and wanting to have something of your own, what would actually be persuasive that this is something worth going after.
For sure. At the initial launch time, were you guys coming up with formulations, or is this completely outsourced?
No. I mean, we were diligencing what the manufacturer landscape looked like.
Yeah.
Thinking through what an offering would look like. But no, we don't do manufacturing ourselves.
Okay, gotcha. So once you guys were established, what were your main streams of advertising then to get the word out for Hubble?
Very, very proprietary. You might have heard of it before. Facebook.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody wants the secret marketing stream. The challenge is marketing happens where people are. So there can't be a secret. There can't be a secret marketing stream. TV is TV ads work, but TV is a mature ecosystem with thousands of advertisers who've already sort of designed strategies that are well optimized to maximize the capabilities and audiences on TV. Mm-hmm. Search is younger, but again, similarly, sort of a mature ecosystem. Right now, paid social media still is by far the dominant traffic source for consumer startups.
I completely agree. So before Hubble, did you have any experience into e-commerce? Because this is a completely different realm from your previous jobs. No. Okay. What about your co-founder? Did you guys?
Yeah, he was at Harry's before this. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah.
So what was your role in the company at this point then? Were you on the advertising side, or where were you in the company and along with your co-founder?
Yeah, it's funny. So we were co-CEOs, we are co-CEOs. we were very, we decided not to get overly prescriptive about it. Which is good, because the thought of, if we had split up things, the thought was that, since I knew less about e-com than Ben, I'd kind of take over some of the ops and Ben would run with marketing. And honestly, for the first 6 months, it sort of ran the other. It's just kind of switched back and forth based on who's most anxious about what at any given point in time.
Gotcha. So to get into the specs of Hubble now, I was checking out the website earlier. How do you assure that the correct lenses are prescribed to your customers?
So we verify every prescription, which is a not insubstantial undertaking, and sort of just follow the processes laid out. The good thing is e-commerce contact lenses are a fairly mature, e-commerce space. So lots of thought and energy has, had kind of gone in there, before we launched.
Okay. So customers, they go to a local doctor, and then do they ship out the information to you guys then from the website?
Yep, and then we verify with their doctor, and kind of take it from there.
Gotcha. In Hubble's first year, you guys did around 20 million in sales, and I was wondering, how did you guys obtain these numbers with subscription-based contacts being so new at this time?
It was. I think if we were launching today, we would have ramped slower. It was a different time, and sure. You think about early 2016, Harry's had just raised at a giant round at a $700 million valuation or something. Wow. Mid 2016, Dollar Shave Club sold for $1 billion, to Unilever, and so there was just a lot of investor demand. And that meant that you could gun it on the marketing side pretty hard to get yourself up to scale. For sure.
So looking at Hubble Contacts today, what would you say separates Hubble from your competitors?
I think, I think we try to be more we try to be thoughtful about, the marketing landscape that we're playing in. I think a lot of there's good and bigger, honestly, incumbent businesses on the e-commerce contact lens side. A lot of them are very oriented around paid search, SEO, and Google Shopping, and so I think we are obviously we're all competing, but really our lane is more oriented around social media, and so. For whatever that little corner of the universe is worth, we've been able to have pretty good share of it.
For sure. Have you guys ever looked into getting into retail at all, or just 100% e-commerce?
We're obviously we'd be kicking the tires on that, on and off. Certainly during this COVID period, we've been unhappy with our focus on e-commerce.
Okay. And I like to ask my guests this, especially during this time. How have you guys been performing during COVID? Have you guys seen a drop, or have you been affected very harshly, or how is it going?
You obviously don't root for,
Not at all, yeah.
For something like this, but it's generally been a favorable environment for e-commerce, and we certainly, have seen similar dynamics on our end.
Okay. If you could share one piece of advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you learned or regret, what would that be?
Just always kill your darlings. Don't get too attached to any one idea. There's so many things you could be working on out there, and just whatever, super cheesy, but make the most of each day that you have, and just try to think a little bit about how you can push the ball forward each day. As Michelle over at Clarebake, she posted something the other day. I don't think this would certainly be an auspicious goal, but she said something like, I just try to remind myself, if I get 4% better each week, that it compounds to something astronomical over the year. And I really do think each day just trying to push the ball forward a bit, and thinking back at the end of the day, did I do that or not? And what can I do to kick myself in the pants a little bit harder the next day? It just happens incrementally.
Yeah. Jesse, well, thank you so much for joining me today. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Hubble Contacts at hubblecontacts.com.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of Starting Small. If you would, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Also, follow Starting Small Pod on social platforms to keep up to date on future guests.